this. One thing I've always appreciated about the Muslim faith is their family nucleus. And I do think that that's the reason why they have so much attack, is because they're so rooted in their values and their beliefs. And they carry that family nucleus. Here in the United States, they want, and again, I respect everybody in whatever they do. They want 2 working people in the home, because if mom's working and dad's working, who's watching the kids? The state, the government. The system is. Their system is cultivating and raising that child and giving them their morals and telling them what to think and not think and who they should side with and shouldn't side with. And then that kid goes to college, another indoctrination camp, and all of a sudden they come back a completely different being from what they raised. And what are they, and again, to your earlier point, what are they taught? Get attention. You go on social media, you get a page. How do you get attention? Show more skin.
That's it.
And then they're getting all this entire process. It's a grooming process, again, to destroy the family. And people are going to get, probably very upset because they're getting triggered in hearing this. But again, do what you want to do, but don't tell me how to raise my family. The most successful people that I've met, not the ones who fake success, but the most successful people that I met are the most giving. It's like they will sit there and they'll like, this is how I did it. Because I think what it is, when you've gone through so much in your life, you don't want to have other people that go through the same. If they could have, no different than parenting. If we've gone through something, we don't want our kids to go through the same struggle. So we're going to impart knowledge to them, so that way they can make better choices and not have to go through that same hardship that we went through. Well, I think it's the same thing. And, you have to seek wise counsel, man. Like, if you're just seeking like counsel, it's an echo chamber.
Yes.
It's like, I think this, you think this. We're all thinking together and we don't have the result. Instead, let me go to somebody who knows. Let me go to experts in the field. And it's like, everybody knows something that you don't. Well, why wouldn't I not go with somebody who has specialized knowledge of what I want to learn? I think the older people get, the bigger the ego can get. They don't want to be bad at something. And I remember hearing this described, ego stands for edging God out. Like, be comfortable being new at something and don't worry about if you're not great right away. If I start playing guitar today, I'm not going to be doing a concert tomorrow.
Right.
So it's like, I even tell my kids, don't overestimate what you can do in a year. Don't underestimate what you can do in 10.
Yeah.
So we're just going to stay consistent with these things over time. And that's one of the best parts about being a parent, is that you have to take the knowledge that you've acquired over your life and explain it to a kid. And those same principles continue to apply. They want people just completely with feelings in the driver's seat. It's like, you got to put it in the passenger seat, and you have to think logically. Like, you have to get through whatever's in front of you. You can't, well, today I don't feel like, what is how you feel have anything to do with achieving a goal or getting out of a bad predicament. And that's what jiu-jitsu, 100%, because I don't care how good you are, man. Eventually you're going to be in a bad spot. You're going to have to think your way through. And when you do hit a wall, or maybe you get submitted, you get tapped out, what do? You review. What could I have done better so next time that I come out here and do it again, it doesn't happen again? Yeah. Well, that's life. You can't make the same recurring mistakes and you don't learn anything. As diverse as the world is, I think we're all the same in so many ways. People focus so much on the differences versus the commonalities. Why don't we focus on the commonalities and grow from there? Yeah. And then take interest in the differences. It takes a responsible adult not to come, this is how I am. And then you're just like 2 bulls fighting. It's like, wait a second, how are we alike? Let's figure that out first. Let that be the foundation of the relationship. And then what can we learn from each other to become a more evolved version of who we are? Like, how can we get to that point if all we're doing is advocating, this is me, you know?
We're going, so we can get into it here. Today I have Raul Velazquez with me. Really, really good friend of mine, someone that I've known now for probably 3 years, I'd say, maybe a little more. I met through jiu-jitsu, through Uflacker Academy is where we're both training, and It's always weird when you're like not a black belt. You always see a black belt and you think like, I wish I would have known that person when they weren't a black belt. I can actually say, at least whatever happens with future relationship, I knew you when you were not a black belt, you were a brown belt. I don't think did I ever see you as a purple belt?
I don't know.
Were you a brown belt pretty much, or did you zip through brown belt pretty fast?
Maybe.
Probably. I think maybe like the end of your purple belt.
Yeah,
Maybe I caught
probably.
briefly.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel good because when I'm a purple belt, I can be like, I saw that evolution. It's possible to get there.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
so
you for having me.
pleased to have you, man. Really appreciative of your time and your being willing to jump on here. I know for a lot of people who aren't like podcast circuit people, and I certainly was never into anything podcast other than listening and consuming, getting your face online other than in your little like Instagram or Facebook circle of friends that you feel safe with is kind of weird. And so I promise to make it as painless and seamless as possible for you.
For sure.
And I really appreciate you kind of putting yourself out there and being willing to do this.
Yeah.
It's just a big thing for some people, and I really appreciate it. I want you to know that. So
Absolutely. It's because it was you. Full transparency, you're being a brother to me, and I want to see everything that you do succeed. And when you said the opportunity to have this conversation based on our relationship, I felt I have to do it.
Thank you, man.
For
It
sure.
means a lot. It means a lot. For those who are listening, I know everyone's like, man, why do podcasters always do this? I didn't understand why they did, where it's like subscribe, like, and share. But I don't have my like auto cut demo video that goes before everything to like slice in. So I've been at the beginning of every podcast just reminding people, please subscribe. There's a button at the bottom of every video that I never paid attention to either when I used to consume content. It's called subscribe. Please subscribe if you like this episode or previous episodes and want to support the channel, getting more reach and visibility. And then like and share as broadly as possible. Something I've been telling people, which is maybe a little counterintuitive, is just if you get an episode like this that you feel like your friends maybe don't connect with, just share, because you'd be surprised at how much kind of overlap there is with people nowadays in terms of different interests, different friend circles, whatever. So if you saw one of my episodes that was a monologue about Middle Eastern headdress, you share that broadly, but also share the jiu-jitsu episode. Like, you don't know what people are into nowadays. People are so like into little tiny things that are kind of counterintuitive. Just share. And I think people get, interested with the variety of content that I'm hoping to have. So with that done, shameless plug, I want to talk about how we met. So the reason why I wanted to have you on is because, one, we did happen to have one of those like chance meetings based on a shared hobby. Like, we didn't know each other. You go into Jiu-Jitsu Academy. There's a ton of people that cycle through Jiu-Jitsu academies, as we both know. Mm-hmm. It's a very high attrition rate, right? A sport or a hobby. You get like, probably, what is it? You hear like numbers like 100 for every 100 people that walk in, 99 wash out, and one person makes it to blue belt, and then from blue belt to purple, and it just keeps getting harder. I mean, a lot of people stick after purple belt, I think I've heard, but the attrition rate is serious. It's just hard. It's a lot of getting banged up, going home bruised and sore and feeling terrible, having to recover and come back for more pain, feeling like you're never progressing for months on end, and then all of a sudden having a breakthrough moment, stuff like that. So you see a lot of faces, but I think the thing that really stood out to me about you was, one, kindness in general, approachability, and also generosity with time. I think it's rare to find that nowadays. Like, if anyone is going into something new, you're kind of like shaky-kneed, nervous about getting into something that you don't know anyone there. You've never done this before. You don't want to look like an idiot. There's all this like psychobabble in people's heads. And you find that one person who just like allows you to, makes it easy and makes it stick for you. And you were kind of that person at Uflacker Academy for me. And so I think for everyone out there, it just comes to show, like, if you can be that kind person and be generous to people around you, man, does it make a huge difference in how much it can actually improve like people sticking with certain things. And then you could end up developing a friendship that is a lot deeper and more rewarding and enriching than you ever imagined. So those are the two things that really stood out to me immediately. It was like kindness and generosity with time. Like, you were the guy who's like willing to be like, listen, I'm going to sit with you for 20 minutes after practice, and we're going to talk about everything you did wrong or certain things you did. And you were always encouraging and super positive. And you just glowed with an excitement about jiu-jitsu, a passion for jiu-jitsu, but also for helping other people and their journey. You were much more a giver than you were a taker in terms of time and in terms of what you were getting out of the relationships. That makes sense. Like at face value to everyone else, I feel like would agree with me. They'd say, man, he gives way more than he takes. I think that to me is like the ethos of a good person and a genuinely, especially like we'll get into some of the faith stuff, but a person of faith. And so those two things, and not to make you blush even more, but I got a couple others. Family oriented. You and I share that we're both about, sad to say, middle-aged fathers with kids of our own and very family-oriented individuals. So I picked that up with you immediately, how much you care about your kids and their future and their well-being, and you're dedicated to them, and always having those boundaries and healthy red lines around protecting your time for your family and your consideration of what you're giving to them. And then the other thing was your passion overall for jiu-jitsu, to me, is indicative of your passion for life and ideas in general, like motivation about sales, motivation about entrepreneurship, motivation about, like, there's so many people that get to our age and you feel like they just die at our age.
Yeah.
And then they put it on cruise control until they actually die.
Yeah.
Me and you are similar in that, like, we have a passion for like wanting to like get everything out of life.
Yeah.
And just excited about new things and trying new things and, you know, saying, hey, I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to put my foot out there and I'm just going to take a step. And I think that was another big thing that really, you know, stood out to me about you. So I was like, man, I want to get him on the podcast and I want to talk all kinds of stuff. So yeah, so welcome. And those are kind of the things that I wanted to point out to you that probably are making you blush, feel like a little bit like, man, why is this guy talking so much about me? It's weird. But I think it's important for people to know, I think there's a lot that they're going to get out of this conversation. So even though you might be listening up until now going like, what is this going to be about? It's not like a theme episode. Trust me, it'll be rewarding. So yeah. So I guess to start off maybe with the first question is, where does that come from? Well, the things that I described as far as your generosity with time, if we can start there. I think kindness, a lot of people are just kind. It's like, you know, whether it's they don't want to be the a-hole or whatever, they just want to be kindness is one thing, but the generosity is what really pushes kindness, I think, to that next level. Where does that come from for you?
I would say generosity for me, I am very specific about where I do allocate my time. So it's interesting to hear your description because I would say other people might say that I'm not very generous with my time. And I think what it comes down to is when I am aligned with people who are like me. So the things that you see as admirable in me, they live in you. So we have that commonality, whether it be jiu-jitsu, family, our faith, because we have that so hardwired within us, we automatically see it in other people. So I take it as a compliment, but it also take it as I have one of my own in my circle, and I'm grateful to have you, right? So the generosity, man, I think when you find somebody that you know is a great person, and if you can even 1% improve whatever it is that they're working on, I'm all in. Because I feel like I'm investing my time in people that it's worthwhile, and then it's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Because I know you are going to do the same thing, and you're going to pass on that same level of generosity. And I feel like we don't focus on that enough as a society. We're just so focused on ourselves and what we have going on. It's I, me. Well, how are we ever going to grow as a society if we're always just thinking of self?
Right.
Like, we have to think about our brothers and sisters. You love what I love. We're wired the same way. If you're asking questions specific to something that I love, I want to talk about it with you. And I mean, we could chop it up for 8 hours talking about jiu-jitsu alone.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, my family, they're amazing. You know, I'm very family oriented. I come from Mexican-American background. My grandfather, I mean, he probably didn't say 10 words in 10 years. He just lived out the example to be. And I just saw that every day, day in and day out growing up. My parents had me when they were young. They were 18 years old. My mom and dad both had to work. We did not come from amazing financial means. My dad eventually worked himself up, became an entrepreneur, but that took some time. So I was really influenced by my grandparents and my grandmother. Oh my God, I don't even know where to start when it comes to generosity. I mean, there was nothing she wouldn't do for a member of the family. And I just saw that growing up. I mean, all the way until I was going into high school, I was watched by my grandma and my grandpa. It heavily influenced me as a person.
So I think you definitely point to your family and your, I'd say, familial lineage in terms of what contributed to you having that sense of generosity. But I just want to highlight something, you know, I think that, Raul, like, nowadays, if you're an adult, there's always, people know this, a lot of friends, I've heard them repeat the same thing, where it's so hard to make friends when you get to be an adult. Like those college friends, people went into the military, they describe like, man, finding friends like your college friends or your military friends is so impossible once you get into like your late 20s, early 30s. There's a time investment. There's an expectation of you're going to hurt someone's feelings. They start investing time. You don't reciprocate. There's all this like weirdness around what it takes to like bond and create a friendship. And I think what people underestimate though is how much just being generous with your time means in a world where everyone is so like me. And to be fair to everyone, not just me, like busy. Everyone's busy. People are trying to provide for their families, working crazy hours. Like people don't have time for this extra thing where it's like, I barely get time to see my wife and kids. A lot of people feel that way, whatever. But I think that trying to say is that little investment of time, it doesn't have to be like hours and hours. It's just that little bit here and there. But over time, it means a lot, and it can build something that's really positive. And in the end, I think that if we are put on this earth for anything, it's to give more than we take. If you look at nature, I think like everything in nature God designed it gives more than it takes. Yeah. And usually when you see human bad behavior, you see things that take more than they give.
Agreed.
Or human designed systems or processes or technology it takes more than it gives. Whereas nature is always like super efficient and super generous.
100%.
And so I think it falls in line with like our creation nature to give more than we take. And when we do that, I feel like it just has like a magic effect. You said that ripple effect. Like it's like Pay It Forward, the movie everyone references. Like it literally, when I saw you doing that with me, it made me stop and pause as a person and go, wait a minute. Like I'm a friendly guy, right? And I'll spend, like if someone asks me, hey, can you show me this? It's cool to be like a lower belt, and someone asks you to show them something, you're like, sure, I'll spend half an hour showing you how I can escape, blah, 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 because you feel good.
For sure.
But it's one thing to be like a black belt or a high level belt where you could get so bored with the same questions and you've been asked 50 million times. It's different. You're not just excited to be the teacher there. You're actually like, no, I care about this person actually progressing and I want to see that. I just think it's super rare because it's so easy to just get into that, like my schedule, my time, I need to go, bye, see you later. But when you think about it, if you do that too in middle age, then you're almost like just giving up on the proposition of in middle age, you know yourself better than any other time in your life. So in theory, you should be able to make even possibly better friends based on like shared values and interests than when you were a kid. Yeah. Now, when you were a kid, they were just memories and deep-rooted emotion. That's probably why it's deeper. But as an adult, in terms of what's shared, you should be able to make better friends. So I always thought like, man, I held out hope. Like maybe I'll make some friends that are solid in adulthood where it's based on something shared and mutual, but then respecting that each other, everyone's busy and has time. So it's not going to look the same as it did when you were younger, where you'd spend crazy hours with your friends because you were single. This leads us to jiu-jitsu. You mentioned jiu-jitsu immediately. We talked about training, generosity and stuff. How did you get into jiu-jitsu? Can you tell people like your background in terms of grappling and then jiu-jitsu, how you got into it up till now? And then we'll talk like all things jiu-jitsu for a while.
For sure. So to your point, I always think of Muhammad Ali's quote, service to others is the rent we pay for our time here on earth. And I feel that people just lose sight of service. That's what we're here to do. We don't live forever. So if we don't impart wisdom that we've acquired over the time that we've been here to help other people, then it's just self-serving. And even with jiu-jitsu, when I got involved, my buddy Mark Estrada, he was telling me for years, we went to church together. Ironically, that's where we met in church in 2009. And I wrestled for 8 years, high school, college. I did some MMA training. I continued to train for maybe 3 years after college and coached high school wrestling. But then I just got really busy with becoming a responsible adult and having to create income for my family. And I kind of got away from that way of life of martial arts, even though I took all the work ethic that I learned from doing it for so long, and I immediately transferred that into business. So thankfully, I was able to scale and become successful in the things that I was pursuing. But around 34 years old, I had a kind of a health scare. I remember I was driving and I was coming from a meeting. I was overweight, maybe 250 pounds at the time. I'm not a big guy, 5'9" on a good day. So when I was coming back home from this meeting, my heart just started pounding out of my chest and I wasn't doing anything. So I was kind of like, what's going on? Pulled over, felt lightheaded. And then I went to the doctor. He did an EKG and, ran the test as they do. And they said, everything's fine. And I just realized I'm putting a lot of strain on my body because I'm so overweight. And there was a weight loss competition that was going on with some business partners. And they essentially said that I couldn't win it. And I'm competitive. So I said, well, I'm going to smoke all of you. And in that competition, I went from 250 to 194 in like 4 weeks.
So quick question.
Yeah.
Were any of the other guys wrestlers that had done cuts like you had?
I don't think so.
So they didn't stand a chance.
They had no idea.
No way.
Yeah.
Wrestling cutting is brutal.
You just go to a different place. Yeah. Very few people, like David Goggins talks about this dark place. I've been there so many times, and it was nice to even get back into it, even just feeling how my body was dehydrated and strained, and your focus goes from here to here. And I won the competition. In that time, I finally took my buddy Mark up on the invitation to go try jiu-jitsu. And I went, and I was one of those guys who was like, I'm not putting on a gi because wrestling is all, I'm like, I don't believe in that stuff. And I went for the first week, and I was hooked. I was just instantly, there's things that I don't know within the world that I love of grappling that I need to learn. And Professor Christian, to his credit, every time I had a question, he would answer my questions. And I just developed this insatiable appetite to evolve as a martial artist because I just view everything the same way out of the same lens. I want to be the best as I can be. I want to pursue that because my greatest version, and with jiu-jitsu, it's endless.
Yeah.
So it's no matter how much I've done, I know there's areas that I need to improve. And I'm so happy about that because then the show goes on. Right. It's not definitive stop and hey, I wrestled in high school back in the day and telling stories to the buddies 20 years ago.
It's almost depressing.
Yeah.
Right? Like with those I once was stories, yeah. They're depressing.
Yeah.
It's good. Everyone can talk about their past. But I'm saying when it ends,
yeah,
it can be versus why have it end?
Yeah,
let the party keep going.
I always tell people, it's good to be a once was, but I'm a still am.
Right. That's a great line.
That's what I want. I want to be relevant. And then my kids, attributing back to family, my son was just born right around the same time, and I said I cannot have my son see pictures of his dad all in great shape 20 years ago. And then screaming to him in the sidelines, can't even get up a flight of stairs without losing my breath.
Right.
I have to be the example. So I started training, and I just became obsessed with jiu-jitsu training, getting in there, being technical, evolving, because even my style of wrestling was very aggressive, nonstop pace. And I flipped it on its head, and I said, what ways can I be more methodical, technical, more like a chess versus checkers type player? And I started learning it. And as I was acquiring the knowledge, to your point, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be able to pass this on to my kids and teach them. Yeah, my son's 7 months now, but there's going to be a day he's 7 and 8. And I'm going to be able to transfer the knowledge I'm learning over this time. And he's going to see, because more is caught than taught. He, from the time he was in diapers, remembers dad walking out, Dad, where you going? Going to go train, buddy. Going to go train, buddy. Going to go train, buddy. Parents don't understand how much that influences their kids.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling them from you should do this and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if they see you do it, it takes away their excuse as to why they shouldn't do it.
Right.
And that was a huge thing for me. Even to this day, literally to this day, when I go train, it's with that in mind that my kids are watching me. And it's super important for me to make it a point to stay committed to the journey. So Mark invited me. I started Uflacker Academy. From white to black, I've been there.
Can I ask you a question here about, so we talked about your journey up through where you're at right now, high level. For those who have never done jiu-jitsu, what is the best description of jiu-jitsu for them without showing them a video? And why is it so special as a unique knowledge set or skill set?
It's a loaded question. I would say the most important thing for me is I have 2 daughters. I have a son. The self-defense aspect of it, there's a lot of martial arts that you can do. And listen, credit to all of them. I'm not somebody who feels the need to tear down a specific martial art and this one's better than that one. But having the experience that I've had in grappling, having been in fight or two when I was growing up,
sure.
I realized how many of them went to the ground. And then I said to myself, we live in Chicago, we live in Illinois. It can be a very dangerous place. And I think you have to be very defensively sound if you're ever in a predicament where you have to protect yourself or your family. So I think jiu-jitsu, of all the martial arts, is the best one. Because whether you're a man or a woman, unless you're cyborg, you're not going to knock out a man, but you can potentially neutralize the attack, maybe put him to sleep, break an arm. I think jiu-jitsu is the best route for somebody to learn self-defense. And then because it's something that you never stop growing in it. You just don't. It just like you can continue from. I've seen kids who are 5, and I see people who are 55 that are still training jiu-jitsu. Like, how awesome is that? Like to have that opportunity to have an ongoing journey, and that's what I fell in love with, and I'm still in love with it to this day. I mean, I trained 5 times last week. It's awesome, man. I think it's the most attractive martial art for people to get into. It is something they should dedicate some time to, and I think time is an excuse. When people say I don't have the time to do something, I don't buy into that personally. I think you make time for what you feel is important to you. And I feel like as a father, as a man with a family that I have to protect, that's a responsibility of mine. I can't just assume that everything is going to be, I pray that it is, but I have to be prepared if it isn't. So that's the way that I view jiu-jitsu.
And how would you describe it for someone who's never seen a video of it? You can go YouTube or Google it, but how would you describe it in terms of like the style of it? What is it for someone who has no clue what it is?
If you've never done any kind of a martial art, just imagine when you're horse playing with a cousin or a brother and you guys are just kind of wrestling, essentially. So it's wrestling with submissions.
And what's a submission for those who don't know?
So, for example, if I were to get close to you, you could potentially grab my arm, lock it out, and break my arm. Or if you were able to get behind me, wrap around my neck, and you could put me to sleep. So it'd be a way to neutralize an attack.
So it's a way to neutralize an attack, get someone under control without bashing into them.
Correct.
So a lot of other martial arts, for those who know boxing, people who know taekwondo, karate, the obvious ones, and then also even judo with the throws.
Yeah.
It's not intensive in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Like impact.
Yeah.
Like smashing and crashing to the ground or getting hit in the face, getting hit on the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
So you can train safely for a very long duration of time over your life.
Yep.
Without having as serious, and not that there couldn't be serious consequences if you do it wrong, but I think if you're doing it safely, you really have a minimal chance of having a serious consequence. And you can train and get better and better for years and years and years, which is where expertise comes in and being really good at something. And the other key is you can do it at full throttle without, like if I punch someone at full throttle, they might die or go to the hospital
for sure.
And have serious brain injuries. If you submit someone full throttle, the control to get to the point of submission and then being able to submit them and have them tap out and say, enough, I'm done, I've given up, doesn't result in serious deformity, injury, brain concussion, etc.
100%.
So that's kind of another way of describing it. The other thing I would say to people listening who are curious about jiu-jitsu is just go. If you are at a point in your life where you need to get healthier, you feel like you want to learn a new skill set that's super interesting, like a chess puzzle kind of like thing, really complicated mentally. A lot of people think it's just physical. And you're like, I want to turn a new leaf. I just want something new. I'm kind of bored. I'm in a rut. Just go sign up for a class or two.
For sure.
Find a place close by where it's convenient for you and go sign up and just try it. And I tell people, like, everyone who's in jiu-jitsu now has the same answer. It's like, I went that first day, bam, right?
Yep.
I was hooked and I just kept going.
Yeah.
Like no one I've talked to was like, I went the first day, I hated it.
Yeah.
Then I kept going another week.
Yeah.
And then I realized I loved it.
Yeah.
You'll know the first day,
the
first session, whether you're going to love it or whether it's not for you.
I agree. You brought up some great points. I remember one time I got in a fight. I was young, and having a wrestling background, he was swinging, and I took him down in a double leg. But when he hit the ground, he was out. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if
his head went like double leg takedown, drove through him.
Yeah.
They went back, hit their head on the back of the ground.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, I could have ended up, depending on what would have happened, I could have ended up in jail.
Manslaughter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
To your point, if I punch somebody and their head hits the ground, manslaughter. And I think a lot of times too, even when people use weapons, is because they don't have confidence in their ability to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So if they bring out a knife or a gun, it's because they don't have that confidence. You're not going to get confidence unless you train. Mm-hmm. So I think jiu-jitsu is the best way to neutralize somebody, and hopefully both parties walk away. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the ego might be a little bit hurt, like, hey, he put me to sleep, but you're still able to, you know,
life goes on.
Yes.
For both people.
Yeah.
Without serious medical or legal repercussions.
Yeah. And, you know, I think one of the best parts too, man, is like when you train, I can't speak for you because I'm not with you every day, but I feel like I never get into any altercations anymore because I feel like people know there's an energy about you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that guy alone. And it makes you more peaceful because you understand how bad things can get.
Right.
You don't want to get in a physical altercation with somebody because you know it could go south very fast.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm more peaceful, even though I'm very capable of violence.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration. Your level of confidence, and even to the point back to the family, I'm always thinking, in which way is the world seeing me, perceiving me? If they perceive me as somebody not to mess with, then they're also not going to want to mess with my tribe.
Yeah.
So it's a responsibility we have as men.
Yeah. I think the big thing I would describe for myself that I've noticed is you realize that the people who don't necessarily look it can be killers and murderers, and the people who look like they could be killers or murderers would be totally subdued by someone who doesn't, you'd never expect.
For sure.
Like there are those memes you see going around. We share, for people who don't know, like we have a group that shares these funny like GIFs and memes about jiu-jitsu. And one of them is always that like Al Bundy actor. I forget his name.
Yeah.
He's got like what's something family. He's on a show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I know what you're talking about.
Al Bundy, right? That actor.
Yeah.
He's a black belt,
He
like
is.
a legit black belt
Yeah.
from what I've heard. And then they show him next to like Keanu Reeves, who plays John Wick. And there's another one. I think it's Aquaman.
Yeah.
That actor. I always forget his name, but Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And they're like, this guy could kill these two people in a real life fight.
Yeah.
Without even trying.
100%.
And it's funny because like once you know that, anyone that you see walking around, just understanding the dynamics of physical force better and knowing what your limits are and who can kick your butt and who you can actually have a chance against based on real skill and not just like a perception of ego.
Correct.
Is extremely healthy and good for you.
Yeah.
Like I was always one of those people I think who had just an ego about fighting, like, oh, I could do this. I could, like a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But once you go through jiu-jitsu, you realize like the first couple of weeks, you're like, I'm nothing. But then that's what keeps you hooked, I think, is to realize like, well, I want to get that Jedi skill.
Yeah.
To where I could do some crazy stuff to like, 99.9% of the population if I had to.
Yeah.
If I got put in that situation.
Yeah.
And the amount that it just diffuses, relaxes you and de-stresses you and gives you a sense of if anyone's being aggressive or anxious around you, you're just like, cool.
Yeah.
Because you've been through a lot worse. And you know that.
I mean, even stylistically now, I am not aggressive like I was as a wrestler because I do have an understanding that kind of like a bullfighter with a bull, if I can stay calm and they're high in emotion, it's, for me, clarity of mind of what I need to do if this does get into a physical altercation. And to your point, what you did too, it makes you so aware of all the things that you don't know. Like you're unconsciously incompetent, then you become consciously that you're really incompetent. And then eventually you're consciously competent and then eventually become unconsciously competent. And those 4 stages of learning, jiu-jitsu will run you through them from white to black belt. And I feel like that way of learning and viewing not just jiu-jitsu, but everything that you do and having no ego and staying like Renzo Gracie says, I'm a white belt. I have a white belt mindset. I'm that way with everything that I do. I'll be the first one to ask a question. If I don't understand something and you know it better than I do, the first thing I'm going to do is go streamline to the best source of knowledge. So that way I can shorten my learning curve.
Right.
Why would I want to go learn it the hard way, take 10 times longer, waste that time when I can go to an expert and say, hey, I would love if you could walk me through this. I'd appreciate it a ton.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And the 2 other lessons, I think that you hit on 2 lessons that came to mind also that are more life lessons. We talked about more the physical aspect and the, stress and health, but the wisdom and strategy of life aspects. One is for those who've never done anything like that. Like I think people who grew up wrestling or played football, I played football in high school, you do sports, you get some of this, but I think in adulthood to commit to something for so long over so much time where you have so many other competing priorities, it reconnects you or teaches you the idea that chipping away at something slowly over time, and you'd be shocked at how much you can progress if you're talking not a couple weeks, because a lot of people do things for a couple weeks or a couple months, they quit. But when you do something for 2-3 years, where you can be and where you can get to is shocking to you.
Yeah.
And you teach yourself that, and then you start to go, what else can I do that with?
Yes.
My job, my side hustle, my entrepreneurial aspiration, my marriage, my whatever it is, can improve, 10x, 20x, whatever, just off of that consistent slow chipping away or building and working. And then the other piece is the fact that you can, like you said, steal secrets from people who are willing to be generous and with their time and kind. It's not really stealing, but get people to explain things to you and then just shorten that time period, that curve of learning. again, you get to middle age. It's like, well, hey, time isn't the same as when you're 15, or, it's not infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to do things at an accelerated pace by asking the right people, you think, well, wait, what unrealized gains in my job have I not done because of not asking the right people, or not having the right mentor, or I haven't grown my business enough because of. So those are two other things I would encourage people who've never done it, who are maybe, a lot of people start it seems these days in their late 20s, early 30s, they have like an epiphany and they want to get back to something and they want to rediscover themselves.
Yeah.
If you're in that chair, or even if you're in your 50s, go try it. As long as your doctor says you're healthy, hopefully you don't have like a heart condition or something.
Yeah.
Go try it, and you'd be amazed at the reward that you get from it.
I think the older people get, the bigger the ego can get. They don't want to be bad at something. And I remember hearing this described. Ego stands for edging God out. Like, be comfortable being new at something, and don't worry about if you're not great right away. If I start playing guitar today, I'm not going to be doing a concert tomorrow.
Right.
So it's like, I even tell my kids, don't overestimate what you can do in a year. Don't underestimate what you can do in 10.
Yeah.
So we're just going to stay consistent with these things over time. And that's one of the best parts about being a parent, is that you have to take the knowledge that you've acquired over your life and explain it to a kid. And those same principles continue to apply. And this society, to your point, man, I mean, the distractions, you have 1,000 different Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu. And it's like, dude, it wasn't like that when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many things that you could do that's entertainment, not education, not improving yourself. And you just get lost. It's just the busyness of everything around you.
Yeah.
You narrow that focus and you have that one thing that you consistently do time and time and time again.
Yeah.
You see the way broadly in everything, then you could automatically funnel that focus into anything that you're pursuing. And it has served me so much. I always tell people, man, I've never been the most talented, the smartest, any of the above, but I am consistent. If I decide I'm going to do something, I will consistently chip away at it, to your point, again and again and again. And it's not, when talent doesn't work hard work beats talent, right?
Yeah.
And that's always been my way of living.
Yeah.
I don't see any other way of becoming real successful. I don't believe in all these Instagram rich overnight. It's complete lies.
Yeah.
They're selling that because they're trying to sell somebody something. It's not the reality of what it takes to actually build something worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a lot there that I want to, certain rabbit holes I want to go down. One of them is this idea of get rich quick, shortcuts, things like that. And then we talked about learning and what jiu-jitsu can give you in terms of learning. I want to kind of tie those two together because they seem contradictory for a moment, but then when you look at it, I think there's a nuance there that explains it. And that is, you start to learn from jiu-jitsu. Another big benefit is you learn how you learn. You discover your best way of learning. And if you start to know how Omar Raul learns best,
yes,
you discover your own kind of circuitry. Then when you go and you want to improve yourself in your job, you want to improve yourself in your whatever it is, entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, whatever, you now have like an ability to quickly learn fast and get it. And so it helped me in so many different areas that I never would have started if it weren't for, believe it or not, like it started with jiu-jitsu. And it sounds corny. I know people out there probably rolling their eyes who've seen some of these like jiu-jitsu podcasts, like rants from different people that are famous out there. I'm Joe Rogan. But I will say it's legitimately true. Like I can trace starting jiu-jitsu, and then I launched an app. Had no app creation background, app development background, no coding background. Me and a friend of mine, literally, and because we were using such cheap labor over in India to make the app, they didn't know anything. Like, you had to spoon feed them everything about what we were doing. You couldn't just describe it, be like, yeah, make me an app like that. No, you had to send screenshots with pencil and paper that I got from Michael's, like a sketchbook with a ruler. I started out there until I found a digital way to make that, which was way stupid to start with pencil and paper. But it was like, I just wanted to get started. Made an app for financial savings. There was another thing that I did, this podcast. I didn't know anything about cameras, didn't know anything about, switchers and video and audio and anything like that. Brought it all together just by learning how I learn and being able to quickly accelerate that. I attribute all that to jiu-jitsu and being able to learn how to get out of a really bad chokehold, or getting, how you're supposed to think when you're under pressure. And learning that there's always a little technique that gets you there faster. So I think a lot of people out there can probably count their dollars increasing in their jobs, sales, you're in sales. I'm sure you've taken a lot into sales that we can get into if you want, just from some of the lessons of like how to learn, how to get faster and better at learning.
For sure. I think one of the quotes that I love the most. It's from Dan Gay, was a wrestler. He says, after wrestling, life is easy. When you do something as difficult as wrestling, jiu-jitsu, a martial art that really pushes you mentally and physically, you look at anything in front of you as not as challenging.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't seem like a Mount Everest anymore. It just seems like a hill.
Right.
And you just know if you put one foot in front of the other, you're eventually going to overcome it. So having those lenses that I see life through, I think to myself, to your point, if you're in a chokehold, well, me spazzing out and me getting like, it doesn't make it any better. If anything, it makes it worse. So I have to calm my mind down and I have to look at the situation for what it is. What's the most technical way that I can get out of this bad spot? Well, that's life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if I'm in a crisis situation, how is me overreacting emotionally going to help me in this predicament? It's not going to.
Panicking, flailing, jittering, whatever you want to call it, is not going to get you out of there.
If anything, it's going to be counterproductive. It's going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to take down that path. And now this society is like, oh, how do you feel? How do you feel? It's like, even you look at Facebook, it's like every emoji is emotions. They want people just completely with feelings in the driver's seat. It's like, you got to put it in the passenger seat and you have to think logically. Like, you have to get through whatever's in front of you. You can't, well, today I don't feel like, well, what is how you feel have anything to do with achieving a goal or getting out of a bad predicament? And that's what jiu-jitsu, 100%, because I don't care how good you are, man. Eventually you're going to be in a bad spot. You're going to have to think your way through. And when you do hit a wall, or maybe you get submitted, you get tapped out, what do? You review. What could I have done better so next time that I come out here and do it again, it doesn't happen again? Yeah. Well, that's life. You can't make the same recurring mistakes and you don't learn anything. You take what happened, you assess it, you get a coach, you get a mentor who's been through that, and then they shorten your learning curve. And now, boom, you're back out there. That's one of the best parts. The other day, Danny, if you remember Danny, he's a brown belt now. I went over the north-south choke with him because we were in the position a little bit. And I said, man, if you make these one or two adjustments, I said, you'll really start submitting people like left and right with this choke. It was this past week. He came up to me so excited. He's like, Raul, I just wanted to tell you, man, I've been hitting the choke. You know what I mean? And I love that because it's like, dude, because you could do something. He could have done it for the next year.
Right. The time saving.
Yes.
Yeah. And having the right person teach you something.
So
it actually brings up a question, and we can get into a little bit of like sales if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So in terms of investing your time more in trial and error versus finding the right person to show you that secret, how do you see that in business? How have you seen that difference or that benefit of one over the other in business?
I don't believe in trial and error at this stage of my life. I'm 41 years old. The average life expectancy is mid-70s. I don't want to waste time. And I feel like, listen, to your point, if I was 17, you know, isn't it funny? Like, if you notice remember when we were like 17 years old, we knew it all.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, well, I know everything about life. So like, if you have any questions, feel free to call, you know,
wisdom will
I
be
got
imparted.
You. Yeah. And then you turn 24, 25 and you realize I knew nothing when I was 17, you know? Yeah. And then as I've aged, I've realized, man, when I was 30, I really thought I had it figured out because I really did. I mean, in my mind, in my world, in my perception, I had a lot of things going well, but they weren't as great as they could be. And there was a lot of areas that I was falling short. Yeah. And then 35, 40, now as a 41-year-old man, I don't think I've ever been this coachable and this hungry for mentors in any specific thing that I'm pursuing over why would I waste my time to figure it out? It just doesn't make any sense to me. In business, I would never do that. If I knew I was going to pursue any given business, the first thing that I would do is I would seek out the best people in that arena and seek out if they can mentor me. Yeah. I'd be willing to pay them to mentor me because who cares what I have to pay up front knowing what it's going to make me on the back end? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense not to pay. We go to college, people pay money. They come out, 30, 40,000 in debt, and they don't even study they don't even work in what they had studied. For me, I want real world application. If somebody's a successful business owner and I want to pursue that business or whatever endeavor, I want to spend time with them. And the ironic thing is the most successful people that I've met, not the ones who fake success, but the most successful people that I met are the most giving. It's like they will sit there and they'll like, this is how I did it. Because I think what it is, when you've gone through so much in your life, you don't want to have other people that you know go through the same. If they could have, no different than parenting. If we've gone through something, we don't want our kids to go through the same struggle. So we're going to impart knowledge to them. So that way they can make better choices and not have to go through that same hardship that we went through. Well, I think it's the same thing. And, you have to seek wise counsel, man. Like if you're just seeking like counsel, it's an echo chamber.
Yes.
It's like, I think this, you think this, we're all thinking together and we don't have the result. Instead, let me go to somebody who knows. Let me go to experts in the field. And it's like everybody knows something that you don't. Well, why wouldn't I not go with somebody who has specialized knowledge on what I want to learn? I'm going to go directly to that person. I'm going to say, hey, what would it take for me to be able to spend some time with you? And like I said, I'm willing to invest. Dude, over the years, I've invested in mentorship 100%. And the ROI, it's not even measurable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, even small business owners, because you have to have a certain tenacity to be in business for sure. But the mistake that they make when they get to a certain point and they can't break past that glass ceiling, so to speak, is they don't take on people who are advanced more than they are or know areas of business that they don't know. Well, how is your business ever going to grow if you keep repeating the same process you've done to get to this point? Obviously, there's something happening there that's a barrier that you don't have the knowledge about. You need to bring somebody in. It's like you can insource, you can figure it out yourself and take the next 10 years to figure it out, if you figure it out, because most businesses go out of business within 5 to 10 years, or you can outsource and somebody has a knowledge in something I'm not familiar with, bring them on, and then boom, exponential growth can happen.
Yeah.
So I've just noticed the most successful people, they have teams around them.
Right.
Wasn't that ironic? Well, how are you going to get to a certain point if it's like under a certain amount of people? It's just not possible.
Yeah. And so you hit on something about ego indirectly. We had a therapist. There's a session, an episode that's going to be airing probably this weekend. I'll put it out like Friday-ish, Thursday night or Friday. We had a really long podcast yesterday that I recorded with a therapist down in Orland. She's got a team of like 18 therapists working under her. Very impressive lady.
Yeah.
Her name is Amina Dahle. And basically we talked about ego in certain communities. And we talked about it in the context of the Arab community. But I kept bringing up, like, I'm sure the other communities that are immigrant communities have this. I think it's an old world country immigration kind of like mentality.
Yeah.
And so there's an ego element there. And then also, interestingly, you hit on like emotion and everything. I think a lot of people nowadays kind of have a misconception about therapy, right? Where they associate like being emotionally soft and having emotions everywhere in front of, wearing them on your shoulder, the snowflakiness that we hear about and stuff like that. And actually, this was a licensed therapist, professional, very capable, very intelligent person who sees hundreds of patients and probably thousands over a career, saying that actually when you get triggered, people use it as like a general term nowadays. Oh, I got triggered, like micro triggering and all that stuff that everyone laughs about. But she was saying that actually really technically what it is you get triggered, meaning something emotional inside of you happened that is rooted probably in childhood or past trauma. It comes out in you. But her whole point was you need to stop that and control yourself, stuff it down and let your brain start working again, then continue having a conversation with your spouse or with your kid, or depending on, like, she's trying to talk about couples therapy in different contexts like that. But point being, we think of it as like, oh yeah, someone got triggered, they got emotional, they went crazy. And it's your right. A lot of people who advocate for this would say it's your right to be triggered. You're a special snowflake. You are your best version of yourself, no matter where you are, no matter who you are. Therefore, just be who you are and don't change.
Yeah.
This is not what a licensed professional who understands this stuff from a psychology perspective was saying.
Yeah.
She was saying, actually, if I interpret her correctly, was like, no, you need to control that.
Yeah.
And you need to start using your brain. And so that ties into what you were saying. It ties into jiu-jitsu and it ties into some of those lessons. But also when it comes to business, going back to the whole aspect of learning, ego, why is it that we think that it's completely fine to get a licensed, like, professional tradesman plumber who's a master plumber, master electrician, a black belt in jiu-jitsu who's world renowned, and we will take lessons from that person in that specific trade. But we don't think that it can apply to fatherhood, to being a good husband, to being a good citizen of society, to being a good local citizen versus, American citizen, being a good whatever business person. The ego, I think, so much gets in the way, where we think we're willing to take that in one little thing that I paid like money for in an exchange way. I hired a lawyer. Their expertise is needed. I paid for my services. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm done with them.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is that lawyer knows something. Now, you can't go to law school and do all that. No one has the time to do that at this stage in life. You pay the service. That's why we have lawyers. But my point being is that there are always people of knowledge, but it doesn't mean they have to have like a job title next to their name for you to think that they're worthy of giving you knowledge.
100%.
They could just be a person that knows something better than you.
100%.
They figured out something that for whatever reason, right? Some wisdom that you didn't get for whatever reason. And you probably have stuff that they don't have in terms of knowledge or insight or whatever. But for us to be open and not have the ego involved, depending on if it's from a family background, immigrant background, social conditioning, where we just have this ego, crush the ego.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps you stuck. That's what I keep telling people is like, ego keeps you stuck. Getting rid of the ego actually gets you to where you want to be, which is you want to have an ego about how great you are. Would you want to be great, or do you want to just have an ego about being great?
Yeah.
You know, it's
I
like,
agree.
It's an illusion, right?
I agree 100%. Some of the best people in my life that have influenced me have been mentors. One of them, Nick Vassarella, through church. This guy, the way that he lives his life, the way that he leads as a husband, and the way he leads with his children, and to see the product that he produced with his family inspires me. We've never done business together, but he's been one of my greatest mentors. And even, it's humbling, like even my son, you know, it was like 2 weeks ago. It was the morning, I was tired, and I was like, hey, buddy. He was walking out, getting ready to go to school. And I said, hey, love you, buddy. He's like, yep, love you too, Dad. It's a great day to have a great day. Dude, that stuck with me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he's choosing how his day is going to look before he starts his day.
Yeah.
It's a great day to have a great day.
He's a quote generator at a very young age already.
Dude.
Imagine what his quotes are going to be like when he's older.
Man,
right?
like, and to your point, like you learn
awesome.
from everybody.
Yeah.
And I feel like from kids, it brings me back to how we should be as adults as well.
Yeah.
You know, kids, it's just so sad, like society as a whole, right? Like you learn how to hate. You learn division over time. Mm-hmm. Kids don't do that. Mm-hmm. You see kids, you name it, any part of the world. You put 5-10 kids together, they have no problems with one another.
Yeah.
The problems are created over time from what they're learning from other people. Mm-hmm. So some people you learn what to do, but other people you learn what not to do. Mm-hmm. That's some of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned is what not to do. Yeah. How not to be.
Right.
And I don't think that that's put enough of an emphasis on whatsoever, you know, like it's unfortunate, but you have to be specific in anything that you do. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a specific plan of how you're going to, what's the way I, just for myself, even my kids, I tell them, listen, what's the end goal? What's the end product? What kind of person do you want to be by this time before God calls you home? Mm-hmm. Okay, then reverse engineer it. What is it going to take to get to this point? Mm-hmm. We have to view it from that standpoint of using our brain and not letting emotion, to your point with the therapist example that you were giving. It's like, yeah, a lot of things get me angry. A lot of things trigger me.
Right.
But I can't be out. Could you imagine if I used my skill set every time I was triggered, every time something's like, well then.
Doesn't entitle you to strangle holding 50 people.
Yeah. Do I think about
it? On a weekly basis.
You know? Yeah. But, you know, it's like, no, I got to control that, man. Yeah. It's like, what are we, 5? Right. It's like we have a society full of people who throw temper tantrums and they think they're entitled or special. It's like, you're just like everybody else, brother. You're not special, right? You have to make yourself special by putting in work. Mm-hmm. You don't deserve anything. You have to earn your way. Yeah. I tell my son, dude, you get what you earn. You get what you earn. Mm-hmm. It's not, nothing else matters. If you put in the work, then you could stand proudly on whatever it is that you do achieve. Mm-hmm. Don't expect somebody to give you anything, and don't expect somebody to give you some kind of special treatment. I think if you are just embodying what a great person is, you will attract great people into your space. Mm-hmm. And then also, I feel like you're going to weed out the people that shouldn't be around you. Yeah. Because I think one of the great points that you made, as you get older, it can be difficult to make new friends. But man, I can say for myself, I've gained some of my best friends in my entire life the last 5 to 10 years because I'm operating at a completely different frequency, at a completely different level. Yeah. And now I'm attracting, it's kind of like, pigeons can only go so high, and then you start hanging out with eagles. It's like, if you know you see somebody else at the same elevation, that's an eagle too. Yeah. So now it's like, yes, like we got a whole group of eagles.
And they feed each other.
Yes.
Right? Like, so you start like playing off each other, you learn from 100%. Each other, you inspire each other, 100%. You help each other, you network each 100%. Other. That network effect that they talk about in terms of how to grow, right? Yeah. You're like the byproduct of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And if it's people who are below you in capability and goals and skills, you're probably going to be stuck, you know?
And most people like to do that. And the reason they like to do it, because in a small pond, if you're a big fish in a small pond,
feels good.
You feel great. Like, oh, I'm the person. I'm the go-to person. I never want to be the smartest person in any room that I'm in, ever. And you have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you speak. In this society, talk. Every social media outlet, everybody's like, okay, cool, give your opinion. But I don't learn anything if I'm just repeating what I already know. The main thing I need to do when I'm talking is I need to ask questions. Because if you know things that I do not know, why would I not be smart enough to ask you those questions so I can now learn them as well?
Yeah.
But you see, if I'm just like, this is how important I am, Omar. Like,
right.
Okay, cool. I felt good for 10 seconds giving my commercial. Like, there's nothing gained from it, man. So
right.
I'm here.
It feeds the ego.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it just keeps on going, because the original sin of man is ego.
Yeah.
Right? The original sin, really, even before man, right?
Yeah.
Is ego.
People fascinate me, bro.
So.
I think that's a gifting that I have for sure. Like, different cultures. And you know what? Like, as diverse as the world is, I think we're all the same in so many ways. People focus so much on the differences versus the commonalities. Why don't we focus on the commonalities and grow from there?
Yeah.
And then take interest in the differences.
Yeah.
It takes a responsible adult not to come, this is how I am. And then you're just like two bulls fighting. It's like, wait a second, how are we alike? Let's figure that out first. Let that be the foundation of the relationship. And then what can we learn from each other to become a more evolved version of who we are? Like, how can we get to that point if all we're doing is advocating, this is me, you know?
Yeah, and so something you hit on, we can kind of segue, I think, into, I want to talk to you about family values and Christian values and Muslim values and kind of what's in common in line of what you just said. So if we as societies, not even just in our society in America, let's say societies across the world, we're talking about international relations, countries, whatever, we do have this tendency right now with whether it's I think propaganda is heavily to do with it in terms of from governments or from special interest groups, whatever, who have an objective, an agenda, try to push that requires them to divide people, to be, to insult people, to marginalize certain people, whatever. What you just said really resonated with me. You said, why don't we focus on the stuff that we share in common versus the fringe stuff? And I think so much what happens nowadays, we're seeing play out in front of us in the news and everywhere else on social media and otherwise, is because certain people have an objective, right? They want to focus on the fringe thing about a certain other group of people and try to paint the entire group of people with that fringe thing. When if you polled 100 people, if we did a bell curve of that group of people, 80, 90% of people would be in this nice, cushy, reasonable middle.
Yep.
And you have a couple fringe people that are extremists on either side.
Yep.
That are trying to they're the most vocal, so they get the most attention.
Yep.
They're the ones who are clickbaity and they're going to attract the most media and marketing attention. Therefore, the algorithm's going to keep bolstering them. We know that. But what I'm trying to say to people is, if you legitimately have some kind of a fear or phobia or concern about another group, try to ask yourself, what are 10 things, 5 things that these people share in common with me that we can build something positive around? And then together, you'd be shocked. I tell people this, challenge yourself. You'd be shocked at how much you and that other person that you thought you shared nothing in common with will together be able to marginalize the extremist nut jobs and say, no, you're crazy. What you're asking for is going to get all of us killed. Yeah. Or, hey, what you're asking for is going to make all of us waste the rest of our lives. Yeah. Or it's going to rob our kids of something, or it's going to waste all our resources, or that's the extremes bring that. Yeah. The people in the middle who are sensible and who are kind of the adults in the room and responsible typically aren't going to push society off a cliff. Yeah. It's usually the extreme voices. Now, sometimes to course correct, if you've been completely off path for long, you need a bit of an extreme person to come in and go, hey, everyone, wake up. You're all crazy. What are you doing? For sure. The ship doesn't have a captain. We're about to go into an iceberg. Move. Yeah. You need someone to jolt everyone awake. Yeah. But that extreme voice shouldn't be so extreme in that it actually brings about nuclear war, for example, or causes some absolutely astronomical, devastating thing to happen. It should be tempered with wisdom and care and caution. So yeah, I think that ties us into family values, and which builds society. So in your opinion, I just want to get your take. You brought a lot of examples up. You said church was inspiring. There are people at church that have inspired you. I know you're a practicing Christian, proud Christian, father and husband and person in your community. What in your definition, Raul, or your mind embodies Christian values or family values? What does it mean? If you were to explain it to someone, here's what it means to me. How would you describe it?
I'd say the easiest word that I could use is love. I love my family. I love God. I remember Nick Vastarella, my mentor, was mentoring me. We're talking through some different topics. I have questions. It's a whole nother, like, think about this. Imagine if I was born in Yemen. Do you really think I'd be Christian? Do you think I grew up Catholic? Do you think I'd be Catholic?
Most likely not.
If I was born in China, do you think I'd be Catholic like I was born into? If I lived in a part of the world that practices any other religion, if I was born in that place, people don't think, what if I was a Buddhist monk because I was born in a specific part of the world? So we learn everything. If I was born in Mexico, would I be speaking Chinese? I'd be speaking Spanish because that's the language of the country.
Absolutely.
We don't realize that where we're placed, where God chooses for us to grow up, live, that influences who we become. Like, information is information. We're getting told this is the path in which we're going to study religion, school. These are the things we're going to focus on. I don't judge somebody from a different religion or race whatsoever. They learned what they've learned. Now, as a 41-year-old man, I have questions on my own personal spiritual journey, right? So I want to know these things for myself, not to validate what I already know, but I want to know the information so I understand how I can get a closer relationship with God. Because at the end of the day, dude, we all came in by ourselves. We're all leaving by ourselves. And there's one person for me, one entity for me that I want to make sure that I'm great with, and that's God. So for me, I've always had, according to Nick, a childlike faith. It's like I could just think about God and I get emotional. To be fully transparent with you, there's something about having an understanding of his presence. It's overwhelming for me. That's why I have to, like, not think about it, because it's like it's so. I heard it recently. It was a pretty awesome example. It was this guy. He talked about these twins that were inside the belly of their mother. And the one twin was talking about, man, there's this amazing woman, and she's the reason that we're here, and she's sourcing us all of our nutrition and our development and our time here in this 9-10 months. She loves us, and I could hear her voice. And then the other twin's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, dude, there's somewhere else we're going. Like, this is a part of our journey. There's something else after this. And she's going to receive us. And the other skeptical twin is like, you're insane. Like, this is life. We have the umbilical cord. We're good to go. We're roomies. Like,
enjoy the Taco Bell coming through the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. And it was such a great example for me, because in my spiritual walk, I'm thinking, like, okay, life is, expectancy is what it is. But I genuinely feel that for me, I'm going to meet God, my maker, 1,000%. And I always say, I don't consider myself to be a man of God. I consider myself to be God's man, because I feel I'm so imperfect in so many ways. I never want people to look at me and say, this is Christianity, because I know the ways that I fall short. But everything that is good within me comes from God, 100%. So I always credit that. Anytime I'm able to achieve anything, I said, it's all God. It's all God. He's the reason. There's no other reason. And even in seeing my wife have our kids, that just gave me even further confirmation that God is real.
Yeah.
To see human beings that didn't exist.
Right. Pop out and become human beings all of a sudden.
Like,
it's crazy.
There's no, like, I'm sorry. Like, I respect everybody's beliefs and where they're at, but no, for me, God is real.
Yeah.
1,000%. I am so committed to what I feel about God, and I'm not telling other people what they need to believe. I'm saying this is me. For me, God sources all great things in my life. And I feel, whether people acknowledge it or not, it sources all the great things in their life as well. But,
And where do you feel like, so you kind of built us, I'm glad you started with this, because actually what you did was you built a case for a creationist case, right? There's a creationist argument you just made of, like, from zero, the womb example. There's a intelligent design argument that's very eloquently kind of in that whole metaphor. Now, in terms of structure and family values and societal values, how would you connect the idea, the realization you just brought us on a journey to, like, now this is how you come to the conclusion that God exists, right? Take us through how that goes into family values and societal values, and why it's so important to then have a value system, in your opinion, if you can.
Yeah. Well, it's a loaded question, right? So for me, with the kids, they hear me all the time. God, thanks be to God, constantly, because I need them to know that there is a source for all the great things that we have, including each other. And I feel like in this society, especially in the United States, there's never been more division and a intention to break the family nucleus.
Mm.
And for me, I'm doing everything I can to protect my family nucleus. It's like the ship doesn't go under from the water that's around it. It's the water that gets in it. And my focus for my family is teaching them these are the values in which we live by. We're not living to fit in with this world. We're not from this world. We're not going to stay here forever. We're here to build who we are internally. And then we're going to be an example for other people. I always tell my kids, I don't care what other people do. I could care less. As a matter of fact, to me, it's a bigger compliment if we're not like everybody else.
Right.
I want you, it's like, why would you want to fit in when you were born to stand out? And by standing out, it's insane that just having good values and morals and, you know, the divorce rate here in the United States is higher than any other part in the world. What does that say about the messaging that we're hearing as men wanting to raise a family? Like, just, it's so concerning to me. Like, our challenges are different. We're not having to go hunt our food, so to speak, and things like that. But man, the attacks that the family nucleus is getting now, more than ever before, the division, just simple things like you can't tell if it's a man or a woman. You have bathrooms for, like, listen, there's certain things I just don't agree with whatsoever. Yeah. And I will never be somebody who sits silent because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't agree with so much of the messaging that's happening in the world. And I think a lot of it is with the intention to break up the family nucleus. One thing I've always appreciated about the Muslim faith is their family nucleus. And I do think that that's the reason why they have so much attack, is because they're so rooted in their values and their beliefs. And they carry that family nucleus. Here in the United States, they want, and again, I respect everybody in whatever they do. They want 2 working people in the home, because if mom's working and dad's working, who's watching the kids? The state, the government. The system is. Their system is cultivating and raising that child and giving them their morals and telling them what to think and not think and who they should side with and shouldn't side with. And then that kid goes to college, another indoctrination camp, and all of a sudden they come back a completely different being from what they raised. Well, for me, it's important. My wife hasn't worked since our kids were born. She's home, and we're raising that family. And I always tell her, the reason why you're never going to hear motherhood praised is because that's not on the agenda. Yeah. It's the opposite. They want to glorify, if you're a successful career woman, and God bless successful career women, but they're intentionally leaving one in the shadow, and they're intentionally putting one in the spotlight, because this is going to be the way that they can control, divide and conquer within the home. And if you think about it from the strategy of an enemy standpoint, it was genius, because they're going right down to where we live underneath our roof to start dividing from that standpoint. And now you divide 1,000 other ways. Well, you're different religions. Well, you have this belief. Well, you're right, you're left, you're this, you're that. It's like, dude.
Well, and before you had to send the kids to school, even if you were reluctant. Yeah. Some people homeschool, but you were reluctant because of whatever. You either sent your kid to school reluctantly. That was their only opportunity for programming, or whatever, right? Or TV, minimal cartoons on Saturday mornings, and the advertisements in between. But now with the technology, and I think a lot of parents struggle with this, and I've been kind of like, as I think balanced, militant as possible, right? Where like screen time is like the last priority I have for my kids. Yeah, it is not. It's actually a constant battle and monitoring session of like, make sure they don't have too much screen time. Make sure no screen time, no games, no this, no, they don't have phones. They don't have social media accounts. If they get screen time, it's literally either they're watching something cartoonish at their age appropriate, like entertainment show, something like that, or they might be playing a little bit of video Nintendo. But as far as social media, as far as absorbing content that is way graded for, ages that are not appropriate for them in general, and we just give it to our kids because they can figure it out on YouTube, is the biggest mistake imaginable. Because now, to compare with what you said, you not only have penetration and infiltration into the home, you also have the issue of these algorithms and the social and the addicted aspect of the addictive nature of the technology getting into their heads. So you don't have to send them out. It's coming in. Programming's coming in, and they've got, if they can succeed, got mom and dad out of the house. They're at daycare. They're at school, then daycare, and phones in between. Where is the opportunity for your programming to seep into their heads?
100%.
That's the big concern, right?
100%.
Yeah. And what you talked about, Raul, like you talked about the world and division and all this stuff that's going on. And you talked about, love as being your primary kind of thing, like ethos to kind of summarize family values and societal values for you. I think there was an episode I did recently about this Perry Green video that came out. There was this ex-husband of Marjorie Taylor Greene. He was in a Cybertruck, and he was just like ranting and raving at these 3 young Muslim women, just like cursing at him and saying, go back, get the F out of our country, and you're not American, and what do you do? And they were praying. Ironically, they were praying in a parking lot garage. And something that this brings up to me is like this idea that I think Muslims and Christians, and anyone who's Christian listening to this who maybe doesn't know enough about Muslims, you clearly do because you spend a lot of time with friends and people around you that are Muslim. But what I want people to understand is like, if you just look at the thing through a lens that's different and not look at it through the lens of like propaganda, again, people who want to divide communities and not get people to actually care and love each other and possibly learn from each other and grow together. You'll look at a woman who's dressed modestly and go, man, those Muslims are crazy. They seem like they're so restrictive. Why do their women cover like that? Man, it's just, and you can come up with all these like ignoramus, in my opinion, kind of aggressive arguments that are very much like anti-Muslim or anti what these people are doing. Why aren't they American? Why do they dress like me kind of arguments. On the flip side, if you have a conversation like we're having, and if people talk to each other and open their minds and hearts, and you realize ultimately what Muslim culture is doing and what Islam is doing is saying, I love my daughter so much and I care for her so much and I want to protect her so much. I don't want her body to be out on display for every guy, because let's face it, guys can be pigs and dogs. I don't want her body out on display for every guy walking down the street as she walks down the street. I want her protected. I want her guarded. I want modesty about her body. I want her to feel like she isn't a piece of meat thrown out there for everyone just to gawk at or bark at or take a chunk out of. And so I think if people under just that statement I made right there, I think if most people hear it and they go, I could get that. I have a daughter. I have a sister. I have a mother. I have a wife. If I walked in someplace with my little girl or whatever, and some weird people were like looking at her and it was age inappropriate and they were a little, and she's like 15, 16, and you got some guys that are in their 30s looking at her weird. Like, guys know. If you're a father, if you're an older brother, you have a younger sister, you walk around with them, you know when a look is not right, and you know when it's okay. Yeah. And we have a detector for that. Like, I know what those guys are doing. I know I saw the look. Oh, yeah. So I think what people need to understand, I use this as one example, Raul, because it's always brought up, like Muslims or women dress weird or they wear hijab or whatever, headscarf. It's not coming from a place of we want to be weird or we want to look odd or we want to be oppressive towards women or we want to, prevent them from having a good time. Yeah. It's purely from the sake of family protection, and every family, the foundation of a family is the mother. Yeah. Is the womb, is the caregiver. And even the therapist we had on the other day, she was talking about the same thing, like mother, 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 mother. It's so much as your mother. Yeah. Then it's your father. Yeah. The father's important, but she's like, if the mother's dysfunctional, if the mother's stressed, if the mother's under pressure, if the mother's got problems, it's all going to go to the kids. Yeah. Transfer is immediate. Yeah. And so that's just kind of an analogy I would give, is like one thing that I feel like is good to clear up and let people understand is like these things that are visual differences between different societies and groups, if you just open your mind and heart and understand the perspective of why, and not just jump to judgment, or people don't just jump to say, well, they're different. Oh, the propaganda tells me then I should be afraid of them and I should hate them and I should then, all right, let's prepare for war. All right, let's go to war with these people, and slow down and think through things. You find that there's so much more in common in terms of ethos. Yeah. It might not manifest the same for Christians as it does for Muslims. I get that. Yeah. But the overall vibe and the goal is the same. Yeah. It's manifesting a little bit differently. Yeah. Well, I think I'm aligned with that as a dad with 2 daughters. I don't understand why somebody would think letting a 15-year-old dress like she's 25, even at 25, what kind of a crowd do you think you're attracting? What kind of attention do you think you're getting? One of the things that annoys me is when I hear parents, moms like, oh, flaunt it while you got it. You're still young. It's like, what are you talking about? Do you think her future husband wants to hear that his mother-in-law was telling her daughter when she's 15 to flaunt what she has? Do you think he's like sitting there like, oh, it's like this society, the United States, it's so toxic in so many ways, man. Like, And this is coming from two people who love America.
Yeah.
Just for those listening to know, like
Oh,
we're
100%.
not trying to like people get in this nowadays where it's like you
Yeah.
say anything self-critical about America, and it's like, well, if you don't like it, what you don't like it, leave it, or that whole,
Yeah.
it's like people love America, but like, don't you want the country that you love to either improve or not go down a bad road?
Yeah.
And lack improvement and
Yeah.
like go down a terrible road and get worse.
Dude,
To me, it's just ridiculous.
And to your point, though, it's like you're going to get offended because people have morals and have standards in which they want to raise their family. Who are you? Who are you to tell somebody else how to live their life? You choose how to live your life. Let that person choose how to live their life. The end product will speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Just what is the problem with somebody saying, this is the way in which I want to raise my family? Like in my house, like there's so many things that we don't eat. My wife is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. Gluten doesn't exist. Sodas doesn't exist. If we were to say, if everybody doesn't eat the way that we do, we're just judging, you're casting, which is very easy to do for someone like my wife, because she is very militant about how she eats.
Mm-hmm.
But to have no grace, that should be the sign of somebody who actually is close to God, is having grace with people. Like, okay, what do we have in common? What perspective can we both come together with and say, let's build off of this? I just don't understand. But I think to your point earlier, there's an agenda to create division. There's an agenda to give these extremes constantly, because if you divide them, you can conquer them.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu, Art of War.
Yeah.
Divide and conquer, dude. And it's unfortunate because so many people fall into that. And to your point, I love this country. I love the free enterprise, capitalism. We escaped other countries that did not have the same financial opportunity that we have here. And I feel like we should be the representation of what this country can be by being the best example, by working together, working with one another. You love your family. I love my family. We love God. That's a foundation.
Yeah.
How can we not build up from that?
Yeah.
And if people want to bicker on certain aspects of it, that's fine to have discussions. But to your point, don't let it get to a point where you get emotional or you get triggered and then it gets heated, because that's when conflict will happen.
Yeah.
You have conversations with people, man, and it's like,
and if you want people to come, sorry to cut you off, but like just if you want people to come your way, also, like let's say you have either you just want people to understand you. That's one level. I just don't want like violence towards my people or my family. I want to feel like we're in a safe society where we all respect each other. That's one level. The next level is we respect and love each other.
Yeah.
The next level is, right, and that's that final level. Ultimately, let's say if you're a person who loves Christianity and you would love everyone in the world to be Christian.
Yeah.
If I'm a Muslim, I love Islam. I want everyone in the world to be Muslim. If people are truly to their, being honest.
Yeah.
We all have that dream for everyone else.
Yeah.
It can't be on anything other than you've proven your case so well and you've demonstrated yourself
100%.
so well as a person
100%.
that people go, I want to be that.
100%.
If it's anything less than that, it's fake or it's
100%.
forced or it's coerced or it's, you know what I mean? Or it's not what it should be if it's faith.
Yeah.
So you want to bring someone to your faith, right? It's not going to be through threatening them, making them feel terrible, making them feel like garbage or or judging them. It's going to be you being the best you having genuine love and compassion and want for your fellow man. And by doing that, they might go, you know what? That person's got something magical over there. I want some of that.
100%.
And that's how we'd want someone to join our faith.
By influence, not force.
Right.
Like you can't force somebody to like something. If they're pretending to like it, it's because you're forcing them to do it.
Right.
Again, back to sports analogy, it's no different than the dad who's 350 pounds making his kid do a specific sport because he was a loser in high school and never got to where he wanted to be. And the kid can clearly see that his dad can get up a flight of stairs without losing his breath, but he's forcing him to go to every practice. That kid he'll do it for grammar school, maybe even high school. But the second that kid gets to make his own decision on if he's going to pursue that sport or not, he's gone because it was forced. You can't force people to be Christian or Muslim. They have to make a choice for themselves. This is their journey, their discovery. And the best thing you can do is be the example. That's why, to the earlier point, I train the way that I do because I want my kids to see the example. Like they notice these things, man. Even the people that I speak highly of, I don't edify these trash examples. Cardi B, J-Lo is trash to me. Sorry. She's been with 90, like this is who like they put up and they put next to a presidential candidate as like a role model. Yeah. I don't agree with it. The Kardashians, it's like, dude, I would like lose my mind. Like, no, that's not. So what I do is I use examples that are real life, like Professor Christian, black belt in jiu-jitsu, the guys from the academy. Hey, buddy, you know, Omar does this. Give him that example. Henry has a trucking business. This is what he's done. Look at how he loves his family. These are the examples that I edify. I speak very highly of the people that I want to influence my tribe. Because to your point, if they're just on the phone all day and they're hearing what everybody else is hearing, they're getting influenced by that. It's like secondhand smoke. If you're sitting in a house with somebody who smokes constantly, it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
So we have to be very conscious because we're living in a different world, man. Like when people say like, oh, well, back in my day, it was just back in your day, social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
Everybody and their mother didn't have a cell phone in their hand, 24/7 influencing
Constant
them.
link.
Constant, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. To your point, my kids don't have cell phones. And sometimes my daughter, she's 14 and people will be like, well, how, you know, let her have a cell phone. It's like, all due respect, I see your kid, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't want to be. I don't want to be rude.
Boys, Raul. Like you've got a girl, I've got boys. I've got a young sister.
Yeah.
Big age difference between me and her, but you know, I'm not responsible for her the same way I would if I have a daughter.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, even with my boys, you know, the cell phone is not even on the radar for me until they're probably 18, 19, 20. They're out of that. They're leaving and they need to have it to function as college students or as, you know, people and working adults.
Yeah.
As far as being a kid, I've had so many people, colleagues, people tell me like, you know, oh, but it's so convenient because, you know, what if they need a ride? What if there's an emergency? What if there's this? What I'm like, you have any idea how many people generations got through life without getting kidnapped or raped or murdered without a cell phone?
Yeah.
The cell phone didn't save. I mean, the instances you could give me to convince me that if they just had a cell phone, they would have saved their lives are so minimal compared to the overall chance of harm. Yeah. It's insane, right? It's not even a comparison. But to have a girl in today's society with the phones, I just go, oh my God, if I had a daughter, I would lose my mind. 100%. I would lose my mind. 100%. Because it's just, they're so different and so, you have to be so much more protective of girls, I think, than
and what are they, and again,
guys.
To your earlier point, what are they taught? Get attention. You go on social media, you get a page. How do you get attention? Show more skin. That's it. And then they're getting all this entire process. It's a grooming process. Yeah. Again, to destroy the family. And people are going to get, you know, probably very upset because they're getting triggered in hearing this. But again, do what you want to do, but don't tell me how to raise my family. That's my biggest standpoint. Let me live the way I want to live and let me raise my tribe the way I want to raise it. I don't need your opinion about how I'm raising my kids because at the end of the day, they're mine. You know, I always tell my wife, I was like, I don't care if so-and-so says this or says that. Are they paying these bills? Are they feeding these kids? Are they there 24/7? Are they willing to run in front of a bullet for their kids? For my kid, they're not. So I don't care what they have to say. I don't care about this person or that person. This is my responsibility that God bestowed upon me to raise my kids the best way that I see fit. Am I going to be perfect? Nobody walking the earth is. Right. But I'll do my level best and it'll come from love. Nothing I do is to take away from them. It's to give them a focus of what they should actually pursue in their life. Getting likes on a picture, you're a loser. Right. Like you're not, there's nothing you're gaining from that.
There's no substance.
None. Yeah. But they're taught that because it's, guess what? It feeds that instant gratification. Like, ooh, she liked it. Ooh, and they'll go back 10 times a day to see how many more people like their picture. Go read a book. Right. go become a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Right, like, what are you doing with your time? The average person spends what?
Learn a skill, learn something, you know, do something. Help mom, help dad.
They spend 2 to 3 hours on social media a day. Yeah. That's insane. Right. Like without even conscious thought, 2 to 3 hours. Same people say I don't have time to go work out. But you're on your phone for 3 hours a day. Yeah. How do you not have time to work out? You're just not prioritizing it. You're making an excuse. Yeah. And guess what? Everybody is a part of the same matrix. They're plugged in. Right. And listen, I have a cell phone. I'm on social media, but I can assure you this much: nothing detours me from my goals. Nothing. Yeah. Like I'm focused, and I don't want my kids. There's a difference
between our generation too. We didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of learned how to use it as a tool. Yeah. Look at it more as a tool, and with a few cool little perks. Yeah. Whereas the younger generation, if you grew up with it at 4 or 5, you had a screen in your hand. Yeah. And you're growing up with a phone, like some families where their phones in their hands, the kids have unrestrained phone access all their life. Yeah. For you to not think that your kid is basically prone to just being a byproduct of the algorithms and whatever Mark Zuckerberg wants to make off ad revenue, to me just blows my mind that people aren't as aware of that or sensitive to that.
And you know what it is too, dude? I think with cell phones, it's just it's the adult version of a pacifier. Yeah. Mom's tired, dad's tired, had a long day. Here's an iPad, here's a cell phone, you know? And I get it. I'm not being unempathetic to the fact that they're tired and they've had a long day. But when you add up all those hours and all that time and all that influence, and you don't even know what the back and forth dialogue and who they're even talking to, like, what about predators, man? Like, you don't even realize how many
sick people are out
yes.
there. Yeah.
Like, what do you, like, you're just automatically opening that door for all of that. And you're not being conscious of it because everybody else does it. Everybody else does a whole lot of things you shouldn't do.
Right.
So I'm not going to fall in line. I've messed up a lot in my life, as any man has. I'm not going to mess up in the way that I want to raise my family. I just don't want to do that at all. That's my priority right there. So again, I respect what people do. Please don't take offense into the way that I'm choosing to live my life. I'm just explaining my thought process, to your point earlier, just explaining how my brain works and why I view it the way that I do when it comes to things like this. I don't think it's good for my family. That's why. That's it.
And the one example I'll give, and we can go into, I want to talk about some of the threats and how we protect against them as the next phase of the conversation, kind of towards the last here part of the podcast. So the big argument against what you're saying and what I'm saying, I think nowadays, is from atheists or agnostics, right? Or anti-religion people, or not secular, let's just say, to put it more generously. People who maybe are undecided, they're agnostic, or they're atheists and militant atheists against religion, where they really have a bone to pick with religion.
Yeah.
What are Christian or Muslim values? What are family values really? It's a cultural construction. You know, it's really what you're used to when you were a kid. It's that argument. And then it's like, well, who are you to impose that on the rest of society, this argument? One thing that I'll say, and I'm curious to get your thought on it too, is let's say there's no religion tomorrow. Every major world religion's gone, okay? And now we're just living in this, like, you know, what do you call it? Post-apocalyptic, kind of like Escape from LA, 80s movie, hellhole kind of situation. Yeah. And everyone's agnostic or atheist. Let's just say atheist, to just go to the extreme example. And my question would be, would there still be something called family values? Would there still be the value of having a system that's structured around certain ethos and certain morals and certain frameworks, right? And I would argue that it is, because my point would be that if you are not putting something in their head, if you're not programming yourself and your kids and your family with something that's positive and beneficial to overall carry them through life, something else is going to be that programming.
100%.
So it's not about religion, if you get what I'm saying.
100%. It's
not about religion. You don't like religion? Okay, fine. I'm going to ask you the same question if you're atheist. What would you want to have filling your kids' heads? Mark Zuckerberg's algorithms? Elon Musk's algorithms?
Yeah.
Choose your Nike's marketing campaign, you know, some lipstick manufacturers marketing. You want capitalist advertising and marketing to be your kids' value system?
Yeah.
Or to shape everything in terms of what they do and how they think?
Yeah.
I think most parents out there would say, no, probably that's not healthy from a psychological perspective. It's like atheist parents. They'd be like, no, it can't be healthy.
Yeah.
So why is it that you can come to it from an atheist perspective, I would say, and respect it and say, well, based on scientific data, algorithms shouldn't raise your kids. It's not healthy for them. It causes addiction problems. It causes da-da-da-da-da. But if someone comes at it from a religious perspective that says, I have a core value system that is almost like an inoculation from any of that crap ever happening, somehow that's bad.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you see that argument that I'm talking about from like a more secular atheist perspective?
Yes and no. I think people just have whatever they believe they're committed to, cognitive dissonance. So you could present, you saw it in politics, right? You could present best case and everything could make sense 1,000%, and that person will still look to fight it because it's just wired within them. They're going to argue it regardless. But to your point earlier, what's the best way to influence people is to be the best example possible. We're never going to win people over being like, this is the way to do things. And this, like, that's actually what probably detoured many people from pursuing religion for themselves. Whatever
is the judgmental wagging your finger.
Yeah.
You're, tisking.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's some people, in church that are the biggest repellents of people coming to church because they're the most judgmental. They're the most unforgiving. They're the most, they forgot how they came to God day one, or maybe they made mistakes in the past and now they're the 15-year later version of themselves. The only way we're going to influence people for God is going to be the best example possible, to have grace and have conversations and realize that if you're saying something, again, to your point, it's triggering something. Maybe they had a bad experience. Maybe something happened in their life that made them the anti-religion person because of a person. But
trauma, going back to the therapist point, she says everything comes from trauma.
100%.
I always had a theory like that too, Raul, was like, I feel like if you could really trace someone who's like super militant atheist, like where they're against religion in an almost offensive, antagonistic way, that there's probably something under there that happened to them.
Yeah.
Right. There's some trauma behind that.
100%.
Normally people aren't to that extreme going after other people.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an idea battle.
And it's unfortunate because it's the same thing in anything, right? Like, why does racism exist? Like, if you had one bad experience with one specific race, you automatically stereotype everybody within that race. Mm-hmm. Well, if I remember Nick, he said something one time. He says, don't judge the man of God, judge the God of man. It's like we look at an individual person who has fallen short in some way, shape, or form, and that person is a part of this religion, whatever it is, anyone. Now we're like, well, everybody is this way, and if this is what religion is, then I don't want any part of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is one person. How are you encapsulating everybody who practices that given faith with the one bad traumatic experience that you had? And I'm not saying that this wasn't whatever it was, but you can't do that. That would be like if I, dated one girl when I first started dating and say, oh, well, that didn't work out, so I'm done.
No more women.
That's it. I don't believe in it. It doesn't. There's no logic behind it.
Or one bad cop means we don't need cops. Yeah. One bad firefighter.
100%.
Get rid of firefighters.
100%, dude. Yeah. I mean, those things. Of course, there's bad apples in anything, right? Yeah. There just is. And to me, I think one of the things that I've been fortunate enough because of business and man, I've met so many people. And I remember one specifically. His name's Ahmed Masad. He's from Yemen. And it was my first real experience, like where I actually built a relationship with somebody who was Muslim. Not because I ever avoided them. This wasn't in my circle. I'm a wrestler. I'm, from the inner city, Mexican neighborhood, Mexican everything. Yeah. Met him, and this guy just blew me away with the way that he lived his life, the discipline that he had, how he works 7 days a week. He still to this day is that kind of a person. Loves his family, like adores them to the. It's like, man, there's a lot of things in the way that he lives his life, religion aside, that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I would like to also emulate and embody that within my own family. And this was when my family was brand new and young. Mm-hmm. So to the thing that we've been talking about, focusing on what we have that's in common versus what's going to divide us. And I think this is the biggest threat to the agenda overall. It's like that example they say about if you put 100 red ants and 100 black ants inside of a jar, they will live peacefully. They will be unbothered. Now, if you take that jar and you start shaking it, all of a sudden, the red and the black ants start killing one another because they don't know what's causing the chaos. They're assuming it's the other person, when the reality is they need to both be focusing on who's shaking the jar. And I feel like as a society, we're getting that jar shaken constantly. It has nothing to do with this. This is a perfect example how two people with strong beliefs, love their family, believe wholeheartedly in God, have no problem with another. As a matter of fact, I would counter to say, we're brothers.
Yes.
So how can this not happen at scale versus the division that they want to continue to create because they want us divided because they can control division. Yeah. They cannot control unity.
And there's people I think who would say, well, who's they? And I think I would point to a million examples of they.
Yeah.
People go, oh, they is the boogeyman term you throw in there to say, oh, what is it? Is it the deep state? Is it? No, it's much more simple in my mind, Raul. To me, it's people who have any group that has a special interest in an outcome.
Yep.
And you being united, or you having compassion, you having love for each other, and not being willing to throw another fellow person or group under the bus, is a barrier to them achieving that
100%.
objective. So it could be anyone. It could be a big business. It could be some deep state thing that people believe in. It could be a foreign government. It could be your own government. It could be media. Someone that has a vested interest in something, and that is a barrier.
Yeah,
it's that simple. Because people, I think, get conspiracy theorists, like, oh, you're being a conspiracy. No. If you have an objective and people being in good relations with one another and happy with each other is a barrier to that objective, you're going to have to dismantle that.
100%. 100%.
You know what I mean? It's not that complicated.
Dude, you just see it back to the original part of when we started this, jiu-jitsu. I mean, can you name a profession that doesn't do jiu-jitsu? A race that doesn't do jiu-jitsu? A religion that doesn't do jiu-jitsu? We're a melting pot.
It's global at this point.
We're a melting pot and we're brothers. It's like, dude, how amazing of an example is that? What if the world took on that same kind of philosophy the way we do on the mats? We don't have any problems with one another. We want to build each other up. We want to help one another. that at the end of the day is what we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, you know, whoever they is, what I know is like, I'm not a part of that. Like, I want to be a part of the solution. I want to be a part of building bridges, not burning them.
Right.
Because that's the only way forward for our kids.
Yeah.
What are we teaching our children?
Yeah. I don't want war.
Yeah.
I want to see my kids who are Muslim and your kids who are Christian and anyone else's kids who are Hindu, Buddhist, whatever they might be in America, in the world, build an amazing world together.
Yeah.
Based on mutual respect.
Correct.
Collaboration.
Yep.
Trading things of mutual benefit.
Yep.
They're not the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone might have all the money and someone else might have the labor. Someone else might have the diamonds. Someone else might have the microchips.
Yeah.
But the idea is business teaches us that you should be able to find an amicable way for both peoples to benefit.
Agreed.
It's only when you have someone who has a predatory mindset that you end up getting violence, war, you know, people taking advantage of each other. Then those people get pissed. They want to fight back and you just have bloodshed and chaos.
1,000%.
There's never a way in my mind, if the right people are at a table that can't find a solution,
100%.
It's usually people who just don't want a solution.
100%.
It threatens their objective, to your point, their agenda. So bringing us back, we talked about TV, movies, media, technology, instant gratification. We hit on culture, materialism, aimlessness, trends leading the way, people being just pulled by whatever out there is in the ether, or whatever people are up to, basically informing people how they should live their lives instead of doing it deliberately. What do you try to do to protect against all this? So let's bring us to the solution phase, kind of towards the end of the podcast here. Is what are some solutions that you found work for you in terms of batten down the hatches for your family, for you, your mind, your soul, to keep it all out?
The most important thing is people have to have a focus, right? So God, number one, has to be implanted into family nucleus, has to become a part of their way of life. Each other, understanding the importance of their own family, because there's going to be a day when they have their own family. So what kind of a culture are they going to create within their own home, under their own roof? They're going to replicate usually what they see, which is another reason, for so many reasons, that parents have to understand your kids are watching you. What kind of home do you want your grandkids to grow up in? What kind of health do you want your grandkids and your children to be in? Where do you want them to be emotionally in their responses to the things they have to deal with in the world? Do you do everything for them? Do you over baby them? Do you take away their ability to be able to figure things out for themselves? Now you have a society full of people who are lazy, entitled, and don't want to work and blame the world for why they're not successful. Well, all of that is directly tied to how they're choosing to raise their family. And then again, for me, I love giving them things to work on. That's why my son, wrestling, my daughter, gymnastics, jiu-jitsu, dance, they need to have some kind of a focus because they need to put their attention into specific things. Because if not, the world
fill their glass with good stuff.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And it's a full-time proactive job, which is why building a strong community of like-minded people is so important as well. Because if your kids are, for example, wrestling and my kids are wrestling and you are cut from the same cloth and they're building that community together, you work with one another. It takes a village to be able to raise the kind of product that we're all collectively looking to protect. We all love our family. We all want the best for our kids. We all know there's a lot of things in society right now that is not good for them. So we need to come together as a community and say, what can we do together to influence them to make sure they're protected? Because there's more out there than ever has been that's going to be counterproductive to their progress as they grow into adulthood. And it's a responsibility that we cannot take lightly, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to fall into the drift ourselves, right? They're
just
the way, I can't stand when people say that, dude. Oh, it's just the way things are. You know how things are. That is the laziest approach to anything, you know? It's like when people with health, like, well, it's genetic. So what are you doing to counter even if you have a genetic predisposition, what are you doing to counter it? Like, have you taken every possible...
Right. You might have to go to some extremes to counter it if you're genetically predisposed to like heart failure at an early age or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But are you sucking down tons of sugar and tons of, high fat or whatever? Nowadays, there's a disagreement about that. But I'm just saying, what is it that you're doing? Are you sitting on the couch? Are you getting exercise? All that stuff.
Excuses,
You're
man.
either setting yourself up for that failure or you're actually doing everything in your hands that's possible to 100%. Control, right?
I always say, man, I love my kids too much not to lead them. Like, do I always feel like working out and pressing 7 days a week and doing things? No. Like, no, that's not what I feel like. I feel like eating pizza every day and eating, like, what do I feel like doing? Right. But I do it because I understand there's a bigger mission in mind. And I tell my wife that our greatest life work And that's not about money and like, of course, like money's a byproduct of providing value. It's not about that. Our greatest life work is going to be what we impart on our children because they're the things, God willing, that outlive us.
Yeah.
And then the future generations that come through them. We have a big responsibility. And it's so easy in the world that we live in to get caught up in everything else besides the family nucleus. And to me, it's just like certain things just don't matter to me, man. Like, I don't care about certain designer or this or that. Again, not judging. I'm just saying, where's my focus? My children, my wife, my tribe. That's the number one thing in my life. And I know you feel the same way about yours. Yeah. And I feel like this is the example that will never get the spotlight in this society currently. We have to change the culture together. We have to give examples. And you know what the cool thing is, though, I will say, is that a lot of parents know that this is what they should prioritize. And sometimes they just need an example. They just need someone, to your point in the beginning, someone who's kind and say, hey, man, here's how you do it. You know, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. You can't take on this huge internal shift into your home if you don't know the path and how to do it. You get a couple good examples, man, like Nick Bastarella was for me. And I'm sure you've had a ton of mentors in your life, great men who have helped mold the man that you are today. You start getting some of those and making sure you're consistently being influenced by them and then implementing what they're teaching you. And just little by little. And just like you develop a jiu-jitsu game from white to black belt, I feel the same way about fatherhood. I feel the same way about anything else I do in my life. Little by little, incremental improvements. And then checking back with my professor, so to speak, and like, hey, how's my game? You know, that matters. It'll keep us on track, you know? So I'm curious, how do you do?
For me, I think nowadays the big focus is, one, you have to get yourself right? You can't lead a family, your kids, your anything unless you're not spiritually and, you know, mentally in the right place.
Yeah.
So I think that to me is huge. So starting every day with morning prayer, with reflection, exercise, you're making sure the mental, physical, spiritual is like the start of my day. And then from there, I think it's a big one. I would say all the things that you said, I think for sure resonate. I think a few things just for the sake of time to hit on that are maybe a little different would be that I would add on, would be having quality conversations with the kids. I don't know how many people out there do that. I think a lot of people aspire to it. I know we all fall short some days, some weeks we're busy or whatever, but trying, like, when we ride to school, I don't have the music on. If I'm dropping them off to school, it's like I had 20 minutes with them, 15 minutes in the truck with them. Yeah. That's time that's like, I might not have that. Let's take advantage of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you have some time with them before bed or whatever, shut off whatever it is that they want to watch. Don't give them, the things that they'd rather prefer. Sit down with them. And believe it or not, if you start having a conversation with your kids, and I've noticed this where I've fallen short sometimes because I've been consumed with busyness and everything else, it's like they would love for you to be fully engaged with them and have a conversation. Yeah. And most of us know how to talk to our kids to make it fun and not philosophical and where they're just like, it's over their head and they don't know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. You can dumb it down a little bit for them at their age level and have a conversation with them where, like, they're asking follow-up questions. They're fascinated. They're even asking you questions where you're like, how the hell did they even think of that? Yeah. Having quality conversations with them about all the stuff that we've talked about. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that this is above kids' heads. It's not. No. A lot of this stuff that we're talking about, if you tell them the reason why I don't want you to have a phone, like some of my friends all have phones. I sit down with them. I explain to them, this is why they do, and this is why you don't. Yeah. And I want you to know that the reason why you don't is not because I'm cheap. I can afford to get you any cell phone you want. Yeah. It's, I care about you too much to give that to you right now. Yeah. Those conversations, they understand. And they might once in a while roll their eyes at it, like in a joking way. But if I go, hey, they'll go, I know. No, I'm just joking. Like, I'm serious. I know what you mean. Like they'll tell you, like, I truly respect what you're saying. I was just kind of joking. Yeah. So that's one, is quality conversations. The other piece of it to me is also making sure, like you said, about protecting from the outside. The way that I do that is I look at where are the avenues that things are coming in, right? Yeah. So besides the phone and technology, I think there's a big one we talked about with the therapist yesterday, which hopefully people will listen to that episode this weekend. She's a big fan of Gabor Mate. He's a psychiatrist, psychologist who's been on a ton of podcasts over the last 15 years. Okay. Really interesting guy, Canadian. His mother had him, I think, when she was in a concentration camp, like he was in her womb. Okay. And so he talks about the impact of trauma on a mother while you're developing. And then, so very much active in terms of politics and social issues, but he wrote a ton of books that are super fascinating. One of them is about ADHD. One of them is about addiction. He's got ones about the one that really introduced him to me was I can't remember the title of it. It's escaping me right now, but it's about your kids and the kids not being raised by their peers. That's a huge thing that I'm sensitive to nowadays.
Yeah.
Is don't let the peers at school or other kids their age raise your kids. Because guess what? Those are just kids.
Yeah.
Kids shouldn't be raising kids.
Yeah.
Parents should be raising kids.
Yeah.
And so you talked about like the system and school and this and that. One of the big problems is just if they can get those kids away from you and to spend as much time as possible with other kids.
Yep.
This guy, Gabor Mate, goes into detail in this book. It's a really easy read book. He put it like in a nice little paperback. The amount of destruction that can come from kids raising kids and peers raising their peers is just unbelievable. I think it's a big blind spot for a lot of us. It certainly was for me.
Yeah.
You think like, oh, if they have good friends, that'll be great for them. I want them, and he talks about the balance, like they need to have social capabilities and have friends, but where the lines are and limits are is fascinating. In terms of how much they can end up just taking over your role as a parent.
Yeah.
So those are the two for me: good conversations and limiting the peers, the social media, the TV time. Like, who is getting into my kid's head if it's not me and mom?
Yeah.
And then what are we doing to give them quality information? And a lot of times it's based in scripture, based in religion, based in God, but it's also like trying to then translate that into like terms they can understand.
Yeah.
Because just to like throw scripture at a kid at that age, they're not going to know what the heck you're talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of times, right? You got to like explain it and simplify it. So, we talked about what works, what doesn't, some things that we try. Kind of last question. Hope for the future. Are you hopeful? Are you kind of like cynical, skeptical? Where do you think things are going to go? And what can people of awareness to this conversation that we've just had, where can they unite to maximize impact? What are some of the positive things we can leave people with to say hope for the future, and here's what we should be doing to make things better?
So I always describe, if I had to put myself as my optimist, my pessimist, I always say I'm just a realist. And with that, I understand the state that the world is in is very divided. There's a lot of atrocities going on. But I also want people, to the earlier point, to work together to find commonality with each other. Because if we're not proactively doing that, just like we're talking about with kids getting influenced by social media, we're no different as adults.
Right.
If all we're doing is turning on the TV and constantly being fed division, do you ever take the time to just go talk to your neighbor and realize that he's a good man,
right,
and you're a good man,
right,
and you have the same core values, and you both love your families, and you want the best for everybody? When you sit down and you take away this tool, this is the tool, like, man, if you just talk to people, that's one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu is like you are training with a person. You're having a real conversation. You get real dialogue, real relationship. So am I hopeful? I feel like you have to live out of one of two places, faith or fear. Fear is of the enemy, faith is of God. So my hope resides in God. And being a man that I believe in God wholeheartedly, I have to live in faith and I have to be hopeful for the future. And us sitting at this table is a great example and representation of what can become something incredible by working together, talking together, talking through things. It's like, because, dude, like, I would love for so many of the core values you have to influence my family. Because it's like, how can I not take a look at the way that you're putting together your family and what's important to you? Because I share some of those same exact values. So, like, we have to be proactive. It doesn't happen on accident. Just like getting in shape. Whatever we're not proactively doing, we're not building bridges, we're not intentional with making sure we're understanding other people's perspective versus like saying, hey, here, this is who I am, and just like doing this. It's hey, hold on. Have a conversation. Like, can you be mature? Could you treat this person like it's somebody that you love versus somebody you're trying to win an argument with? It's two different places to come from. Now, in my experience, when I was able to build the bridges the most is when I was just coming from love, man. Like, no different than showing somebody a move in jiu-jitsu. I want their game to excel. In doing that, if both parties are able to do that at a small scale of a one-on-one conversation, why can that not happen on a 2-on-2, 4-on-4? Grow it as big as you want. I think the future is great. The reason I have to side on that is because I have kids that are growing up in this world. And I'm just praying to God that we are able to figure out some of the problems that we're currently facing. because I want the
people are
best.
waking up to some of the problems. Like, do you feel like on scale, the fact that we're having this conversation, I guess is what I'm saying, is a good sign,
Yeah.
right? It's a signal. It's one signal in the dark, kind of.
Yeah.
Do you feel like friends, different people that you talk to socially, do you feel like people are waking up to this and we're having more of a collective conversation, that people are at least waking up? Maybe they don't have the answers. Maybe they're not ready to transform their whole life to be an agent towards good, action towards good to change the situation, but at least they're aware. Do you think that's happening or no?
I think there's more awareness for sure than before. Before, I feel like people were just plugged into a matrix and they were just kind of like zonked. I feel like now people are understanding, even if they don't have the courage to step forward and be an example themselves, they're acknowledging certain things shouldn't even be in question. Like certain things are just not good for society, period. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we even have to,
like, having what is it? I read some statistic, like they said 40 or 30% of kids, girls that are like between the age of 18 and 25 are on like OnlyFans.
that's insane.
Like stuff like that, when you hear that and people are going, I don't care if you're atheist.
Exactly.
I don't care what your religion is or your value system.
Yeah.
Surely that cannot be the future you hope for your kids.
What do you think?
You know what I mean?
You know, again, back to the earlier point, and I can't stress this enough. Please, I'm not judging.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But if you're giving a kid a little girl a phone at 10 and 11 and 12 and 13, and by the time she gets to 18 and you're wondering why she's jumping on OnlyFans,
right?
Look at how she's been developed and groomed and influenced. The most popular people in the world are showing everything. And it's like, there's a reason that this is so important to protect from those things. And we can only do so much, man. And it's like, one thing that sucks when you're doing your best to be a good example and doing your best to influence your family is that you're always going to have that crowd of people who just hope that your family doesn't do well. You know, it's just like, yeah, but look at how this happened anyway. You know, it's like, what a terrible way to live your life, to hope for other people's failure when I'm the literal opposite. I hope people get everything in order, man. I hope, to your point, I hope they get themselves in order, their physical in order, their spiritual life in order, their finances in order. Because when people are in order, when people are doing well in their life and they're happy, that generates more happiness in a bigger space. Better. Yes.
The whole world, people give more, people help the people who are downtrodden and less fortunate more.
Yes.
Everything is better.
Only scarcity minded people are threatened by other people, man. That's all it comes down to. Like, if you're abundant minded, why would you be threatened by any other human being who's doing his best to live their life? Yeah. You wouldn't be threatened unless you have a scarcity mindset. Well, if he does well, that means it hurts me. Right. If people are saying that person's a good example, it means I'm a bad example because I'm not doing X, Y, Z. Right. Has nothing to do with that. He's doing something great. Follow the example, learn from it, implement it into your own life, and then let's see what happens a year from now, man. You're going to be in a different space. Mm-hmm. So, man, I am hopeful.
So you sound hopeful. Overall, as a person listening to you, Raul, I would say overall hopeful, but with cautious skepticism or optimism, knowing that the forces that are out there to try to derail all that are strong, and they're heavily vested in something else, in a different agenda. They are. So it's about, we got to be careful and be aware of that. Yeah. And not be fooled. Like, I guess the way I would answer the question in closing would be kind of, let's take the most extreme example, just because I think it paints a good picture of what we're talking about. I have a full-hearted belief that if you took the right Palestinians, the right Israelis, and the right Americans and put them on a table together, they could solve that issue. They would have been done 60 years ago. Yeah. 60 years ago, it would have been done. Yeah. But if the extreme elements on any one of those groups are allowed to lead the conversation or dictate the agenda, it won't happen. Yeah. One's going to try to use violence against the other, coercion or whatever force, or the other side's not going to, you're going to have continual violence until one of them dominates the other and wipes the other one out. That's what we're locked into there. Yeah. But if the right people on each side could get a control of the extremes, and this goes into this societal conversation we're having, is like, I chose the most extreme example because it's truly the most extreme. Everyone goes, oh, that's never getting solved. I'm saying if that could get solved, in my heart, I believe it could. If the right voices were allowed to be the ones that lead the conversation, you could resolve it. Yeah. Something that divisive and that crazy and that, traumatic for people. Same thing here in America. I think if you get Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, people who say we want to share life together. And I don't care about what religion you are. If you're going to be part of my religion, it's because you believe in it. Yeah. It's not because of coercion or fear, or because you feel like there's going to be reprisals if you don't. Of course, in America, we don't have that so much, but in other countries you might. Yeah. I'm just saying, be loving and caring and kind and good to each other, and try to build the best society and community around each other and with each other. And you'd be shocked at how much, and don't listen. You hear a voice trying to say they're all bad, they're nasty, they're terrible, they want this, there are always going to be some small slivers of every group that have bad intentions or have bad rhetoric,
Yep.
or can scare you a little bit because of whatever about them.
Mm.
Focus on the majority of people and what they want, and focus on the good.
Yeah.
I guess that's the kind of overall message I would have, and say, if we can do that, man, it's scary how much the whole world could change into like just this amazing positive direction. So much so that it's almost like you think it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's not really.
Yeah.
It's just people need to, like you said, have the right mindset, not a scarcity mindset, not a fear mindset, not a, what do you call it? Accusation mindset of like always trying to be vindictive and accusing the other side. You're this and you're that. And just don't do that.
Yeah.
And focus on the good. And it's amazing, I think, what transformations and kind of positive collaborations and building a society we can do, whether it's in America, in the West, or even in the East, even in places where I think that's how dictators fall. That's how regimes can fall. That's how authoritarians can fall, is just what we just discussed.
Yeah.
But the difference is they're so good at controlling the levers that won't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Where at least here in America, we still have some degree of, it's under threat, but we have some degree of freedom compared to like a true all-out authoritarian dictatorship.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a future I definitely don't want to be living in, right? And be a part of. So credit to you, brother, because at the end of the day, you're asking about hope, but you're also a beacon of hope because you created this platform and you're taking the proactive steps where people might not in another scenario hear voices like the ones you're interviewing, and you're creating that dialogue and that open space. You never know what episode can impact what person, and that opens the door for them to really start creating that future that you're talking about. And you're taking proactive steps to create it versus just complaining from the couch and saying, well, this should happen and that should happen. No, you're putting feet on the ground, you're putting it into action, and I wish you the absolute best, man.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you. Nothing but love for you,
absolutely,
for your family, and for what we've just discussed. I really want to encourage people who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, this discussion, and other similar content, please subscribe, like, and share. And as much as possible, try to take part in the conversation by supporting it. And also, I would ask if people out there have guests that they think would be amazing to have on, people local in the community or otherwise, please try to reach out to me through the YouTube channel comments. Try to reach out to me. I have some other ways, Instagram, Twitter, that kind of thing, where I'm available. Please reach out, and I would love to hear of a great person to have a good conversation with. And hopefully we'll have you back, and you'll be a regular, Raul. So and we'll hit on other things, maybe lighter topics too in the future and stuff, and just have a good time. So thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. See you later, folks.